In this presentation, we will move sequentially through the course, from perceptions to probes to projections. As we've learned, the 21st century city can only grow inward on top of itself. Constructing new spaces on existing building fabric is called densification. The series Stacked by Peter Stewart captures the essential question. Once we accept the living densely, how do we make the compact spaces exciting and enjoyable? An answer to this question may be found through a focus on interiority. Interiority values the relationships between objects. Interiority is an atmosphere, a feeling created by enclosure, pattern, color. Professor Erdman specified 6 characteristics of interiority. During our site investigation, we will focus on the qualities of involute and pressure. This map shows how much densification is currently happening in New York. Zooming in, we see these 4 neighborhoods are experiencing the most development. In this seminar, we studied 3 important areas. The High Line is important because this new elevated park is the most dense area in the city. The industrial nature of the reuse project is a good precedent for the character of Brooklyn. Our site location is unique because the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway is elevated on a yellow painted metal roadway. Though theoretically pedestrians can pass underneath, the quality of space around the BQE makes it act as a wall, cutting the Brooklyn neighborhoods off from the Navy Yard coastline. Next, we will probe deeper into the existing site conditions. Our first precedent is the amphitheater from the High Line. The sloping, stepped platform draws people downward to the open glass windows. The change in material signifies new focal points. Next, we investigated this project by Cook Fox Architects. Again, a significant grade change, which is this time contained by a terracing ceiling plane, creates a pressurized zone of pedestrian traffic. The thickened bands of alternating materials create a stacked rhythm that contributes to feelings of interiority. Here's a map of our specific site area, B1. The first latent space object on site is created by the metal structure of the BQE. Underneath the BQE in the parking zone, the consistent columns and joists create a pressurization tunnel. From the center, the supports slope outwards and slightly upwards, creating a pressurization that pushes pedestrians out to the sunlight. However, due to the small sidewalk and traffic zooming by, walking experience is not pleasant. The second and largest latent space object is the courtyard created by the residential development north of the BQE. Looking south, the vertical elements on the facades of the buildings begin to build inwards and downwards, creating pressure to move into the courtyard, though that is currently not possible from street level. Looking at the longitudinal section, we see a sort of meadow created by the terracing and varying heights of the buildings. The tall buildings on each side act as bookends, blocking off the BQE. Our proposal is to take this low point meadow and stretch it to underneath the BQE. Instead of rejecting it as a barrier, this will engage the BQE and turn it into an asset. The same terracing funnel strategy from the section can also be applied in plan, opening towards the BQE. In the next section, we will establish the narrative of the triptych as a whole. This is our triptych, moving from left to right and zooming in scale. We studied framing and directionality and arranged the triptych so that the major lines of each image guide your eye from the focal point of one image to the edge of the next. The center line and midpoint are always aligned with the focal point of each image. Though the viewpoint changes, the subject is always the space object, the main figure in the center of the image. The color and tonality of the images are filtered to bring out the yellows and reds of Brooklyn, the BQE metal, the brick facades, the golden light. You can see similar proportions of yellows and grays in each image. Now we will demonstrate how our site observations were combined with analysis of precedent photographers. Aerial photos by Jeffrey Milstein influenced our first montage. In this shot of Disneyland, there's a strong axial relationship placed in the center of the image. The lighting is soft and yellow from the lower right-hand corner. Here we can see how Milstein's image influenced our aerial montage. We established a strong north-south vertical axis, but the east-west axis is not perpendicular. The light is early morning coming from the lower right-hand corner. This slide allows us to compare the altered montage on the right with the existing image on the left. We can see the focal point of the existing image was the BQE, but we shifted the focus to the newly created pressurized courtyard, and the BQX tracks parallel the BQE. The existing courtyard was linear with no public access and no directionality. We amplified the pressure by pinching the courtyard into a funnel and have turned it into a public feature. Our second montage is influenced by this photo from Balthazar Korab, a 2-point perspective with a balanced distribution of subject, foreground, and background. The focal point, the entry doors, are located in the middle, and the perspective lines lead off the page. Here's the side-by-side comparison. Our montage was taken from a high camera angle looking slightly downwards. The focal point is in the center, and the perspective lines lead off the page. The existing image is presented on the left, altered image on the right. We see the main difference is the shift of the focus from the red brick context of Brooklyn to the new additions and stretching of the building block to engage the BQE. The plantings on each side suggest a cohesion from one side to the other. Pressurization of different terrace levels is now centered on the BQE, driving occupants toward it from both sides. Under the BQE is now desirable, a concavity, a collection point. Lastly, our third montage is influenced by this CoreAb image. It's using nearby foreground and top structure to limit a horizontal area for courtyard space to be focused on. Second, contrast between bright sky and dark building edge shapes the void space, and bright reflection on steps is to show the continuous connection from foreground area to the focused area. Here we can see the influence of the precedent image on our montage. We want to use similar elements to shape the focus of our altered space object from below the BQE. Color, hues, brightness, and contrast are used to deliver the atmosphere. Here we have a comparison of the existing image with the altered. We see the flatness of the courtyard has been changed to create a pressurized space, drawing viewers in. The space under the BQE is renovated to create a pedestrian-friendly walkway connecting to potential BQX stops. Colonnade set back along the interior boundary of the courtyard creates involution quality of the space object. Symmetrical massing, stepping down towards BQE, creates a clear pressure direction. Pressure in our space object increases as the buildings are stepped higher and leaned inward. The sloping ground landscape adds an additional pinch of pressure and suggests continuity with the courtyard behind the viewer. Thank you for your attention.